Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. So now I'm going to not delay and bring Aubrey Kennedy on. Hello.
Hi.
Hello. So I'm going to warn the people listening that we're a little goofy today. All right. I gotta start with a joke. All right. So I gotta try to tell this joke without swearing.
I'm just glad you announced the joke.
Yes. Buckle up.
It was necessary.
Starting. So Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse were in court getting a divorce. And the judge says to Mickey, says, well, I can't grant the divorce because Minnie is a little bit crazy. And Mickey goes, I didn't say she was a little bit crazy. I said she was effing goofy.
Oh my God. Oh, wow. Wow. That had like levels to it. Levels to it. I was like, okay.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So that's
hilarious.
So that just happened.
That was a great joke. You deserve an introduction.
Yes.
I get it now.
I'm screwed now, though, because I can't tell another joke. I just reached my pinnacle.
It's a good one.
So today, since we're caught up in laughter emotion, we're talking about emotions.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess, Eckhart Tolle has a very famous quote that I hear people saying a lot, and basically it says, I'm not my thoughts. And I hear people, talk about that pretty regularly, because we're used to saying, okay, that thought passed through. It's not me. I can just let it go and all that stuff. So like people are very familiar with that. And something I don't hear very often is the second part of that. He says, I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions. And I think where we are in our spiritual shift is that we're, well, geez, how far back do I go with this? But it's like, it's my generation, man. I mean, we are smack dab in the middle of this shift from going, because I think like your generation is more open spiritually than my generation. My generation is like right in the middle. And then my parents and or grandparents, my grandparents' generation was completely closed, like they were still, if you had food and nobody was punching you in the head at that particular moment, life was good. That was like, yeah, that was the extent of their thriving for this,
1,000%.
perfect world. And then, and then my parents' generation, I think, started changing a little bit, but they were still kind of old school. And then my generation, like we figured out, it really became popular and kind of accepted by the norm that beating your children wasn't a good idea.
Just not a good idea.
No, and that other people can actually hurt your feelings, and that some of the things that we experience as children actually affect us. Like, we're the first ones to go, oh my God, like,
yeah,
I'm all messed up. Like, so which is cool because, we're the ones that are opening up and seeing this stuff. So therefore we can fix it. But I think an aspect of that is we fell into the victim mentality. We're victims of everything, So I think, we're coming out of. I mean, give us time, only halfway through.
Whole lifetime worth of undoing.
Yeah, we got some time.
Yeah.
I think part of that is that this emotional thing, like part of being aware that we were messed up and conditioned dysfunctionally, and our emotions were hurt, and all that stuff. Like we're taught to honor our emotions, which is good. We should honor our emotions. We should pay attention to them. We should hopefully release them, feel them so they can release. And it's all part of it. We can't stuff them and pretend that it didn't happen, which is good. But like most things, we'll do the pendulum, stuffing all emotions, not being aware whatsoever. And way over to the other side is honoring them too much and letting them control our lives. And, I think that that's kind of where we are, and we have to get back into balance, back into the middle. So I think we honor them a little bit too much. It's people fight for their right to be angry.
Absolutely.
Or upset. Well, you don't understand. I mean, I have the right to be angry. It's like, well, yeah, but what, do you want that right? Because just so all you get with that right is anger flushing.
Yeah. And I think it comes from like, my feelings are valid. I think that's it more so comes from a place like that, but people hold on to it and they end up holding on to that anger, making themselves feel terrible for it.
Right. And that's so, like, to me, it's step one. We got to step one. We've been at step one for 20 or 30 years. Holy crap, your emotions are actually important, and we need to honor them, and we need to actually feel them and allow them to release, and they're messengers and all this stuff, but it feels like we're stuck there. We need to, like, if you have the right to be angry, then feel anger. But that's step one. I mean, otherwise, if you never do anything after that, then you're walking around with that anger inside of you forever. So, but you have the right to it, so that you got that going for you.
Yeah, you can keep it if you want.
So step two is, it's working through those emotions and working through those feelings. So, so that's one aspect that we need to, sometimes we need to, I'm not going to go too deeply into this aspect, but sometimes we need to reframe things so that we don't feel like we're a victim of that situation. And then all of a sudden, every time we think of it, it doesn't conjure up those feelings of victim mentality, because we change the way we look at it. Then we can release the anger. But like, some people like, oh, I let that go. It's like, you let it go where? I mean,
I just swept it under the rug for a while.
Yeah, and like, that's just a new age term for stuffed. Like, I mean, like, you can't just let stuff go. We're not,
It all comes to the surface eventually when you stuff things down. It's funny. You just reminded me. One of my coworkers. She said something really great a few weeks ago, and she said, she said, not me, of course, I don't stuff anything, of course. But she said, you keep sweeping stuff under the rug and you wonder why your house is a mess. And I was like, oh, that's so good, because it's just what happens, over time. We don't clean up those messes, and then we're like, oh my gosh, it's such a, I don't know how to deal with all of this.
Yeah. Yeah, and then people come over and they're like, what's the speed bump in the middle of your living room?
Literally. You're like, oh,
what? I don't know what you're talking about. Just don't touch it, because it might release.
Yeah. Don't move it.
Yeah. So it's like, we have to reframe things. like the way, because if we look at them like we're a victim, every time we're reminded of it or we think of it again, it's going to generate negative emotions because we have a negative perspective on it. So, so sometimes it's a matter of that. Sometimes it's a matter of just allowing ourselves to open up and feel, and just, feel that emotion, not run from it. So, we have all those aspects that we can do. And I kind of want to touch on just being in control of our emotions a little bit more, because it seems like part of this shift that we're going through, that everybody's trying to learn how to do things healthy and how to do it the right way. And it's again, we swing too far with the pendulum in the opposite direction. And I see a lot of people letting their emotions control them, and it's kind of apparent over here in the DR because there's not as much structure. So a lot of people I know aren't running to 9-to-5 jobs over here. They work on the side, they work a little, maybe they don't work at all. Maybe there's a lot, maybe they just work part-time, and, so there's a lot of different things like that. So people are kind of more going with the flow over here. So and I'm connected with a lot of spiritual people that are very aware, so if they're aware and they're like, wow, I'm all out of sorts today, I'm staying in, I'm not going out, or I'm not, I'm just going to work on myself for a few days. Like, and I mean, I just did that for a few days. There's nothing wrong with doing it, sometimes when it's appropriate. But I think we have to remember that we're in control of our emotions not in control of us. So so we can, I don't like using the word stuff, but let's call it what it is. We can stuff our emotions to go out and do things. We can go to a party if we want to go to a party. We can go wherever, go accomplish something that we need to accomplish. We don't have to put grocery shopping on the back door for 3 days because we're feeling a little verklempt.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's like just being aware, because what it is if we honor things too much, we start giving our power away to it. Then it's in control of us instead of us being in control of it. So as long as we're conscious and we go, you know what, I know that I'm feeling all whacked out, but get out of here for now. I'm step aside. I feel like I'm going to go to a party.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't happen that often, and I want to go, and I'm not letting my emotions wreck my plans. So stuff, we do it all the time anyway. Or we used to. And sometimes we're talking about earlier, people with the regular 9-to-5 jobs out there, they do it on a regular basis. If you get in a huge blowout fight with your spouse over breakfast, you're still going to work.
Yeah.
So we are, I guess my point is we are capable of just putting it on the back burner for a while and then going to it afterwards. I think that's the biggest trick, is going to it afterwards. A lot of people don't do that. So then there's just so much that they can't stuff it. It's just bubbling over.
Right. And you become super reactive that way too. Having that extra space is nice. There's been times, that I have not, it's like, it sounds great, like just walk away but you can't, like, there's just times that you can't shut your brain off with it. I don't know if that space makes it better or worse.
Well, I think it's, this is like most things to me, it's a spiritual practice. We got to play with it. And we got to play with it without even fully understanding exactly what it looks like, or even believing that we can necessarily do it. Yeah. Most of the stuff that I figured out how to do, I guessed. Like, I didn't,
trial and error. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember years ago, I was going through I was going through a breakup that was really hard, and there were other issues going on, and I was going to I was an emotional basket case, man. I mean, I was going to work and I would literally like break out crying at my desk, like just, and I'm like trying to hide it in my little cubicle and going off to the bathroom. And I'm like, I'm a freaking mess. Like I can't, and it was too much. I couldn't control it. So I was like, all right, well, this is not okay. Like I can't, I'm literally a blubbering idiot. Like,
you can't control you. It's just happening to
Yeah.
you. It's like,
and I can't, I'm reactionary. I can't control it. There's just too much. So, somebody walks by and says, so how's your girlfriend doing? It's like, so what I did is I was like, there's too much emotion in me. So I was like, I got to try to do something because I can't function at this point. So I went home and I dove into the emotion, allowed myself to feel it, set aside time when I knew my son wasn't going to be around. Nobody was there. I got my favorite throw pillow to scream in so the police didn't get called. And I dove in, man, and I snot bubbled and I dry heaved and I cried and I wailed and I screamed into a pillow and I let myself feel it, and it, of course, it released. And the other thing is I didn't play the poor me story in my head. Oh my God, I can't believe we're not together anymore. Oh my God, I can't believe. Oh my God. Like I didn't, you can't play those stories as you're feeling emotion.
No.
So that's why I always tell people to put your mind on the emotion. What am I feeling? I'm feeling heaviness in my chest. I'm having trouble breathing. Okay, take a deep breath. Focus on continuing to breathe, and that you're okay, and what the physical sensations are. Pressure in my chest, tension in my temples, nausea, whatever you're feeling. Just notice that, be the observer of that, and that give your mind the job to pay attention to that instead of telling a story, because when you're telling a story in your head, you're just replacing the emotion that you're releasing. Your body doesn't know the difference between whether you're thinking of something or whether you're experiencing it.
It doesn't know if it's in the past or the present.
Right. So
experiencing it presently emotionally.
It generates the same emotion. So like if you go through, like, we'll stay with my example. If like, let's say I was going through a breakup and it conjured up all these emotions. Okay, well, that's from the particular breakup at that moment. Then if I keep replaying it in my head, oh my God, I can't believe when we're talking and then she said this and then I said this and it dawned on me that the relationship had to end and oh my God, it hurt so much. You tell yourself that stuff in your head, like this is the, I kind of talk about this a lot. It's important. Like we have to understand that what we're doing is we're doubling the emotion because the situation caused all that emotion. The thought like, oh my God, we broke up. Oh, that's sad. So it triggers emotion. So then I feel that emotion. So there's a bunch of energy in my chest from that experience. And then every time I think about breaking up and think about how sad it is and think about that I didn't want it to happen and think about every time I replay that, it's just generating more and more emotion of the same flavor.
Yeah.
So we don't release it. And what's I noticed this, and of course I want to know why. Like whenever we do something that's good for ourselves, like allowing ourselves to feel emotion, our body gives us an automatic positive feedback. There's something in us that knows that this is healthy. So what happens when people start feeling their emotion, the emotion just automatically releases as it's felt. So there's something inside of us that is telling us this is a good thing. Keep doing this. This is healthy for you. So we get that message unconsciously. So we try to keep it going. We try to keep ourselves feeling the feelings. So how do we keep feeling them? Well, we tell a story in our head to keep it alive. Oh my God, this feels so good. I'm releasing it.
Yeah,
it feels like crap
to everyone, and you keep it alive in words, in language. Right.
Mm-hmm. So as you're releasing, you're just replacing. So you never really, maybe you make 10%. Maybe you release 100 pounds and you replace it with 90. Well,
yeah,
so congratulations, but you could have dumped like 80% of it, same period of time if you weren't replaying that story in your head,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, taking what I decided to do was doing it on my terms instead of its terms. I was like, you're not just going to cry and make me a blabbering idiot at work. Not allowed. We're going to do this on my terms. So, I'm going to, on Wednesdays, my son isn't there. I'm going to come home from work and I'm going to dive into a bitter morass of self-pity.
Yeah. They're all out in one little and did you gave yourself a time frame for it?
Yeah. I mean, back then I just did it every day. I'd find some time, either if I had to pick up my son right after work, then I would do it later that night after I dropped him off, or if he was in bed, or, but I did it every day until I was in control of my emotions, until I could be out in public without bursting out into tears. So, and I was like, oh, okay. And so it worked. It's like, like we picture it like a container, it can only hold so much emotion until it starts bubbling out. So when we, experience some of those emotions and feel them so they can transmute and leave, now all of a sudden, instead of having a full container, our container is 3/4 full or half full. Now, maybe every time that little lid gets open, shit doesn't come flying out, like a can of worms.
Well, yeah.
Those snake things, those snake in a can where you.
I know exactly. I know.
That's what it's like half the time. If you've got too much emotion, so if you resonate with that statement, like if the lid comes off your container and everything comes flowing out, you've got too much stuffed emotion in you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Is there now? Do you? Is there something that people can do to check in with themselves? To see if they are stuffing emotion and separating, like if you don't want to do something because you actually don't want to do it, versus not doing it based off of an emotional response.
Yeah, and I think those might even be like two separate questions.
I think they might be too.
So what were they again? Because I went from one onto the other, and I don't remember either one of them now.
This is how it gets sometimes. Yeah. Just pick one. I don't care which one you pick for. How do people separate first? How do people separate if they're making a decision based off of if it's what they truly want, like going to a party? I don't want to go to the party because I'm tired. How can you separate if it's not based off of an emotion and you're actually just giving that as an excuse? Yeah,
well, that's a phenomenal question, because it's like, what you got to do is get the fear out of the way first. You got to remove the part that's controlling your decision. Then once you get to the even ground, and then you can bring the decision back in and ask it again once you're onto the even ground. So like you can do this with anything, but like for the party, how do I know if I really want to go to this party? Because, I'm tired. I don't think I want to go. But another part of me says, well, you don't go to parties very often. This might be fun. So like you can get, so usually it's a slight version of fear. You don't want to go to the party because you don't want to be in a situation that you're not enjoying. And then, you, like, a lot of times your brain doesn't notice this unless you follow it all the way through, like I'm doing. When you start following it all the way through, going, okay, what am I actually fearful of? What am I actually trying to avoid? Oh, well, I don't want to be at the party and then wishing that I was home because I'm tired. Okay, well, what if you went to the party and you started just, trying to have a good time, and then all of a sudden it dawns on you, like, you know what, now that I'm here, I know that I don't want to be here and I would rather be home. So why don't you just pre-plan an excuse so you have an out and you don't have to think about it?
Yes.
And then you come up with your out. And then once you get your out, you go, okay, so then, like, if you ask the question again, so like, okay, well, then what if you have to make it okay to be at the party without feeling uncomfortable.
Gotcha.
Right? So you go, okay, I'm at the party. I have my out. It's really not a big deal. I can leave. I have an awesome excuse. This out is stellar. So nobody's going to question it. I'm going to be able to just flow. And if they do question it, it'll be my spiritual practice to be true to myself and leave anyway.
Right.
So it'll turn into a lesson and I'll grow.
Yeah.
Right. So then once you get yourself there, now all of a sudden there's no fear. Then you can bring the question back on the table and go, okay, so I'm going to be okay if I go decide to leave. I'm going to be okay if I go decide to stay. And of course, I'm going to be okay if I decide not to go because I'll be home and everything's fine here. So I'm okay on all three possibilities. And then if you pay attention to how you feel, and that's actually true, you've done the proper work in your head and you've framed everything. So you're like, yeah, no, I can, everything's cool. Okay. Then you can ask yourself if you want to go or not.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So you got to clear away the roadblocks that your ego or your emotion is trying to prevent you from feeling.
All the like the layers of excuses.
Right. So it's like you got to so if you get yourself to like, this is kind of a specific version of something I learned. I think I learned in recovery way in the beginning, and it was follow it all the way through to the end. So you can follow your fears all the way through to the end. You can follow your choices all the way to the end. So the first time I used this, it was like when I was trying to get sober, when I was still obsessing about alcohol every freaking minute. And they said, follow the drink through to the end. Follow it all the way through. So like and I'm kind of an extremist, of course. So what I used to do is I would be like, okay, what happens if I pick up a drink? Oh, well, first thing, all this pain inside of my heart goes away.
Right.
And I anesthetize it. And that's the romantic aspect of it, to stop the pain. So, and internal suffering. So it's like, oh yeah. And then what? Oh, well, and then I'll drink more and more and more. And then what? Well, then I'll wake up and I'll probably be hungover and I'll probably feel remorseful and horrible. Yeah. And then what? Well, I'll probably feel so crappy that I'll probably go drink again. Right. And then what? And then I'm caught up in that cycle that I'm trying to get out of. I'm just constantly drinking and feeling bad about myself for drinking, and then drinking more to stop feeling bad about myself. Okay, cool. Yeah. And then what? And I just took it all the way to where I got myself laying in a gutter, just covered in puke and blood and feces. And my parents were walking down the sidewalk with my little son going, look, there's dad. That's where I took it intentionally.
Yeah.
And that, like, even now, just thinking about that possibility, it makes me a little bit nauseous. So it's like, but it helped. I didn't go pick up the drink. you know?
Listen.
Yeah.
Whoever.
So it's like, and that's, and I could logically see that happening because I was kind of close to that, I was very close to that.
Yeah, possibility.
When I was using. So it's like, so that was the first time. And then I started doing it with fears, follow the fears all the way through. And then they can't own you. And
like, what's the worst possible thing that can happen if this happened, kind of
right.
thing?
So when I started my business, it was like, okay, I'm collecting food stamps. My son just moved in with me full time. I doubled my parenting responsibilities, and now I'm going to start a business. So this fear. Okay, well, like how you can barely pay your bills now. How are you going to double your rent and open up a business space? And
yeah, how are you going to pull this off?
Yeah. And it's, so the fear wanted to come up. And so I followed it all the way through, and I followed it. It's like, okay, worst case scenario, it falls apart. I have to get some crap job doing something that I hate for a while. And I can only afford a studio apartment.
Yeah.
I could always get a job. I mean, doing something, enough to scrape together and afford a studio apartment.
Right.
It may take me a little while, but even if I had to sleep in my car for a while, right?
Yeah, you figure it out. You make it work.
Right.
You're just going to make it work. If you're alive at the end of the day, there's always,
there's always a possibility. Right. And like that's where you get to when you're at the end of the road, when you're standing there. Like a lot of times people don't do this because they think that it's almost like we believe too much in manifesting. They think if they think about something, then that means they want it and it's going to come true in their life. It's like, relax.
No,
you can follow things through and see. So I would take it and I'd be like, well, maybe my son would have to sleep at a friend's house for a couple weeks. I mean, it could, whatever. We'll figure it out. It'll work somehow. Right. I've been. This is the benefits of being an alcoholic. I was an alcoholic. Couldn't even draw a sober breath, and somehow got an apartment and a job and a car.
Right.
Multiple times. And now I have my head on straight. I think I'll probably be able to do even better.
What you were doing. Yeah. In a much different position.
So once I looked at the worst case scenario and was like, okay, well, do I want that to happen? No, of course not. I'm going to do whatever I can to prevent that from happening. But if it did, I'd handle it. Yeah. I'd handle it. Somehow I would make it through. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, okay. And you got to, that's the very specific spot. You got to disconnect from that. Yeah, but I don't want that to happen. Yeah, but I don't want that to happen. Yeah, but I'm scared of that happening. Yeah. You got to let go of that fear and just understand that, of course, you don't want it happening. This, I don't want a meteorite to shoot through my ceiling right now. There's all kinds of things that we don't want to happen. That doesn't mean that we can't think of them or, and just understand that, God forbid, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Like, it's this unconscious, people get really scared when they do this. They think that they're like going, no, if I say I'll make it, that means I'm welcoming it. I'm kind of bringing it into my reality and it's okay that if that happened. It's like, no, that's not what you're doing. You're, it's very likely that it won't happen. It's really likely that it won't.
Yes. You're acknowledging that even the worst case scenario, you'll still be okay.
Right. You'll
not
be
asking for the worst case scenario.
Right. And then, you can even follow it. You can even continue following it. You can follow it through the solution. I kind of did that already. It's like, okay, I'm homeless and I have no job. Okay, well, I'm sure I could find a job doing something. That's a solution. I could probably get a studio apartment on maybe a minimum wage job. Now, this was years ago, so the apartments are insanely expensive right now. But so you get a freaking roommate, or there's always a way. You know. So it's like, so you go, oh, okay, I can get a job. I somehow I'll find a place to stay, even if it's in my car for a little bit. Okay. So you can see your way out a little bit.
Yeah.
That can help squash the fears too.
Yeah.
So, so that's a big technique that you can do with anything you're fearful of. I do that with everything. I don't like the energy of fear in me. So when I moved over here, I bought a moto. I bought a motorcycle because it made sense that it was, I could buy a brand new one for $1,200 or try to figure out a car.
Right.
Like it just made sense. So the only reason that I wasn't going to do it is because I never drove. I'd been on the back of my friend's motorcycle doing $114 tons of times.
Yeah.
Almost dying, but I had never driven one. So like there was fear. So I learned how to drive one, and then I bought one, and then I got around with it for a while because I didn't want fear to control my decision.
Yeah.
And then I moved up to the mountains. Well, can I take this thing up into the mountains? I don't know. That scares me. Well, you got to get over that fear. So I took it up into the mountains, and I wiped out and burned my leg on the exhaust one day and got back on it and made it up. And, and then after I came up and down 4 or 5 times, I'm like, can you do this, Glenn? If you needed to do this, could you do it? Yeah. I mean, I've done it. So yes, I can do it if I need to.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Possible. Yeah.
Now that the fear's gone, do you want to do it? Oh, hell no.
Yeah.
Hell no. I don't like it. I don't like this. I don't like cooking up here on a motorcycle. I have a dog. If something happens with my dog, she's too big to take on the moto. Like, I'm more of a Jeep guy.
Yeah.
So I went and got a Jeep. But it was a decision, but I refused to make the decision out of fear.
Yeah, you remove the fear. And I like the stemming it down and then stripping it away, stripping away those excuses to see what's underneath.
Right.
Yeah, because we're not making any decisions based in reality if we don't strip that apart.
Right. You got to get the fear out and know that you can, like, once you get that fear to rest and it's out of the picture and you're like, okay, I'm going to be okay. I can do this, whether it's through physical acts like the motorcycle or whether it's through thinking acts, whatever, you got to get that fear out of the picture.
Yeah.
Make peace with whatever's might or might not happen and know that somehow you're going to handle it. It's like, okay. All right, cool. And then you put it back on the table and then you can make a decision.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just think it helps with not being so reactive towards things too. Yeah.
My father, my father interests me more and more because he just finds stuff that works. He always has. And, he doesn't call it spiritual, but it is. That's why it works. So like he says, like with his decision making, he would always gather information, which I am a big proponent of. People skip that all the time. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Well, you don't have enough information. That's why you don't know what to do.
Right.
So just gather information, and 90% of the time what happens is one side starts, becoming clearer and clearer that that's the way to go, and the other side gets less and less. So just continue, until the decision comes clear, we gather information. So my father said, like the way he does it is he says, well, I research and I gather information. And then once I've gathered a bunch of information, I sit down and I look at it logically. Does one make much more sense than the other? If it's a yes, of course, that's what I do. But if it's like 60-40, one or less, 50-50, 60-40. If it's 60-40, it's like, then I throw all the evidence that I gathered right out the window and I do whatever I feel like. Because
clear or no. Yeah.
Because there's not that much difference between 60 and 40.
Yeah.
Like as far as like if you made the wrong choice, the discomfort level is only like 20% greater than the other side. So it's really not that.
It's not right.
Yeah. You don't experience that much of a donkey kick.
Yeah.
Even if you chose the wrong thing, and you can kind of combat it because you did whatever the hell you want. You know, like you're like, I want this, you know?
Yeah.
I just did it because it's what I wanted.
I did it because I chose. Yeah.
You know, so he's like, that's when you bring in the emotion. Your brain is there to make, and this is what I say. This is why I find my father interesting, is because I keep finding parallels to what he does and why it works so well and what I've learned, you know? So it's like your brain is logical. It's there to make decisions. Emotions are illogical. They are not good for making decisions. They're good for capturing your attention. They're good for all kinds of things. Good and like even sometimes feeling negative feelings is a huge asset to us, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes it saves our lives because we feel something negative and we go, oh my God, you know? So sometimes it can save our lives, and sometimes we can experience immense love and happiness and all kinds of stuff. So emotions are a wonderful tool for us, but they're not good at making decisions. They cloud our vision, you know? So you bring in the logic, use your logic and your gathering information skills to make decisions. And if it's close, then bring in the emotions. Be like, hey, emotions, what do you think? You know?
Yeah. It's it can be tricky because I don't know. I don't think. I mean, listen, I might not be right about this, but from what I understand, you can't think with logic and emotion at the same time.
Well, you can't think with emotion at all. Like, no.
Yeah, you just act through emotion.
Right. Like you don't like if you're feeling really negative towards something.
Yeah.
Like there's no choice to go, well, I'm feeling really negative, but I'm gonna go positive. Like if your emotions are guiding your decision and they're negative, you're going negative.
They're going negative. Yeah.
So there really isn't, you don't have freedom of choice if your emotions are choosing, are doing.
No, you're along for the ride.
Right. Yeah. Whatever the direction your emotions are going, you're going, and the decision's going. So that's why they're not good for decision making.
Consistent. Yeah.
It's that get off that horse. You know, it's like that. There's some anecdote or something of like your emotions are like a wild horse. And it's, you know, like if like if you don't have the reins and the horse is just going like a bat out of hell, like nothing good is going to come of this.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so like just, you know, just jump off, man.
Yeah.
Is it going to hurt? Yes, but it's going to hurt less than whatever.
I love these analogies. Really, one after another. It's nice.
This is a wild freaking horse, man. Just going.
That's what I'm gonna picture every time now.
Yeah, I'm just getting off the horse, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's because I don't know where this is going, but it ain't good.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh. Well, that was good. Now, do you remember the other part of that question? It's okay if you don't, because we've been a while.
I asked you how people separate, right? We talked about how people separate emotion from logic, and there was one other question, and I can't remember it now. I wish I could rewind. Yeah, it's gonna come to me in like a middle of a sentence or something.
And I was like, as soon as I asked, I'm like, I almost didn't ask because I was like, this is so putting her on the spot. Like,
no, like, and it's like right there. It's right there. It's right there, but it's not there at all.
Yeah. Well, now like this happens, this will happen sometime. And it happens even more when I was doing the podcast alone because
oh my gosh. I
had nobody to ask. I was like, hey, Glenn, do you? No. Yeah. No. Like I'm the only one that can fill the empty spaces. So I'm
We're
screwed.
just over that.
Well, I mean, that's cool. We actually, talked about a lot of different things that I didn't know we were going to.
Yeah.
But I like it. I like I think to me, this had a lot of like helpful tools, a lot of specific actions and how to take them.
Oh
Which,
yeah, absolutely. We all struggle with these things. We're all very similar. We're more alike than different.
oh my God. Yeah.
In one
I
way.
just posted that today. It was, this post, this something I wrote, like, actually, maybe this will be probably a good way to close off because you just brought that up for a reason. So, yeah, my post today was this post that I posted in 2016. It says, I love the fact that we are all more alike than we are different. Underneath the surface, we all want to feel loved and safe. We all get scared sometimes. We all innately love our children and want the best for them. We've all witnessed people coming together in stressful times and marveled at the strength they displayed. We've all felt fear in times of change. We've all been in places where we couldn't see our way out, but yet somehow made it. And we've all helped someone else at one time or another and felt the peace and self-love that spawns within. I love that.
I love that. Beautiful.
I love that too.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, this is why, like, a lot of times when I'm working with people, it blows their mind because I tell them what's going on inside their head. And it's like, it's just because it goes on inside all of our heads.
Yeah.
Like,
we all have the same emotions and, go down the same thought processes.
Yeah. So we all struggle with the same stuff. It's, and most of it is, when we get down to the core, it's even more simple. One person is like, oh my God, I'm freaked out because I can't make my car payment. And somebody else is like, oh my God, I'm freaked out because I can't figure out how to get my son in the premier soccer league that costs so much. And somebody else is going, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to make my mortgage payment. And like, they think it's three different things.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's that one's kind of obvious because it's finances, but still it's like, we don't have to learn 3 billion tools.
No.
Keeping
it's very simple. We don't need to overcomplicate things,
Right. And I mean, it can still be hard. I always have to say that.
It is. It's work.
Because
conscious is work.
Yeah, it's work, but it's worth going through, and like, you're going to go through it anyway, so you might as well grow on your way.
Yeah.
It's like we're going through life, and there's a certain level of suffering that we're experiencing, and that we don't want to experience. So, like, you got two choices. You either go through the suffering with your eyes open and growing and releasing and learning through it, and then you come out the other side to this level of peace and bliss and happiness and love that you didn't know existed. Or you can just suffer.
Yeah.
Those are your two choices. You're going to grow one way or another.
Either enjoy your experience or don't, but it's your choice.
Yeah.
Right.
Lean into it or don't. But like, if you lean into it, it's going to go a lot smoother, a lot faster, and you're going to grow and you're going to come out the other side. If you don't, you'll suffer longer. And then eventually you'll grow when you can't take it anymore, with the universe dragging you, kicking and screaming.
And that contrast.
But you're going to grow. Like, the universe doesn't stop expanding. The world doesn't stop spinning. Like, we are going to get on the other side of this stuff. So we might as well just embrace it. Yeah. And then swear at the skies every once in a while when it becomes.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Well, cool.
Yeah.
I'll do it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. All right. So yeah, we got to make sure we keep these under an hour, which we did.
Awesome.
So,
Perfect.
all right, cool. So I will, I think I'm just going to start the ending and wrap it up. All right. So we will see you guys soon. Well, I'm going to see Aubrey real soon because we're about to record.
Really soon.
But everybody else, yeah, we'll see you soon.
Looking for more? Check out over 200 episodes of Life Lessons in Laughter, or click the link in the description of this episode to connect with Glenn directly.